Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming today. Just a reminder, if your authority is going to appoint you, I need those letters of appointment. I understand Dean Button's letter just arrived. He's the appointment of Hammond. So, going on to business, we have the minutes of the January 7th, 2025 meeting in the packet. Any additions, corrections, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? The ayes have it. And I'll start with introductions. I'm Kevin Breitsky. I'm the Porter County Surveyor and the Chairman for your committee today.
Tom Vanderwood, Emergency Staff.
Floor Baum, Emergency Staff.
Max Raylander, City of Valparaiso, City Engineer.
Bob Thompson, City of Valparaiso, Director of Planning and Transit.
Mark Riddell, Town of Chesterton, Town Engineer.
Kelly Wanger, South Shoreline.
Tom Schmidt with the Sherwood Town Council.
Jeff Hewitt, Town of Sherrville.
Ryan Lissick, Director of Indiana.
George Topple, Union Township, Porter County.
Mary Tanis Dyer, Town Council.
Chris Murphy, Structure Point.
Meredith Stillwell, Emergency Staff.
Alex Lister, Public Fairman Cypress.
Tricia Nugent, DLZ.
Jake Dameron, Public Fairman Cypress.
Christopher Harris, City of Gary.
Rodney Harris, J.P. Oil. Scott Pruitt, First Group Engineering.
Evan Lavalette, First Group Engineering.
Mike McCool, INDOT.
Stephen Hughes, Emergency Staff.
Scott Weber, Emergency Staff.
Charles Bransky, Emergency Staff.
Grace Benedict, Emergency Staff.
Mitch Barlow, Emergency Staff.
Terry Martin, Carrie Gable.
Thank you all. It helps us with our roster and attendance to know who's here, so I appreciate your self-introductions. We get to know you better. There was no public comment signed up. Is there anybody here to make public comment today? Seeing nobody, let's move on to planning 3.1, 2024 fourth quarter safety travel time, reliability and congestion update. It's going to be Grace. This can be found on page 3, and this is information.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're going to be going over performance measures for the fourth quarter of 2024, covering safety, travel time reliability, freight, and congestion. So to start with our safety update, in quarter 4 of 2024, we had 6,039 total collisions in the Lake, Porter, and LaPorte County areas. Compared to quarter 3, we had 300 more total collisions, and compared to quarter 2, 120 more collisions. We also had 1,116 injury-related collisions and 26 fatal collisions. Compared to quarter 4 of 2023, though, we did have an overall decrease in total collisions by 5.4%. Compared to the overall 2024 state targets, the Northwest Indiana area had 8.7% of total fatalities, which is overall 81 total fatalities for 2024. Comparatively, we had a much greater portion of the state's serious injury target. We had about 27.2% of the state's target for serious injury, with a total of 893 serious injuries. At one of our last meetings, someone had asked about our pedestrian and bicycle users. So for quarter 4, I wanted to extrapolate our vulnerable roadway users, which are all of those that are in collisions with non-motorized vehicles, which would be our pedestrians and pedicycle. From this, you can see that Lake County tends to experience our highest amount of vulnerable roadway user collisions, with about 5 times more overall collisions than Porter County and 9 times more collisions than LaPorte County. Also to note, these first 3 categories, or these first 3 bars in each category are pretty similar, which indicates that almost every collision we had that involved a vulnerable roadway user ended in some sort of injury. So then looking at our crash data by county over 2024, you can see that from from quarter 3 to quarter 4 in Lake County, we had a few more collisions, but that overall injury collisions and the total number of injuries went down. And then compared to quarter 4 of 2023, you can see that total collisions went down, as did injury collisions and the total number of injuries. And then it is hard to see at this scale on this chart, but compared to Porter and LaPorte counties, Lake County did see an uptick in fatalities, going from about 7 or 8 per quarter to 15 this quarter. And then in LaPorte counties, going from quarter 3 to quarter 4 for 2024, you do see a noted increase in total amount of collisions, but a decrease in injury-related collisions and total number of injuries. And then comparing quarter 4 from 2024 to 2023, you see we're pretty consistent in the total number of collisions, with a slight increase in property damage only collisions, but you do see a decrease in injury collisions and total number of injuries. And then in Porter County, you do see a pretty stark increase or decrease in total collisions from quarter 3 to quarter 4 in 2024, as well as quarter 4 of 2023 to quarter 4 of 2024. And that's pretty consistent across all of the categories as well, especially when it comes to injury collisions as well as total number of injuries. So moving on to travel time reliability, which kind of just looks at the consistency of travel times throughout the area. So on our interstates, you can see that the only month in quarter 4 that we did meet our state target was in December. And then comparing how well we did in quarter 4 in 2024 compared to 2023, you can see that our travel times were a bit more unreliable in this past quarter than they were in 2023. It was a little better in November. And then looking at our map of our travel time reliability on the interstates, pretty consistently we see that it is the I-80-94 corridor, pretty much from eastbound from the state line to Indianapolis exit, and then westbound from I-65 to Kennedy exit. And then looking at our travel time reliability on our non-interstate roadways, we perform much better, meeting all of the state targets for all months in quarter 4. And then looking at our map, it's kind of hard to see, but some of our problem areas tend to be on US 30, as well as US 41, and then US 421 just south of US 30. And then looking at our truck travel time reliability, this metric is only assessed for the interstates. And Northwest Indiana tends to underperform in this metric pretty consistently. And you can, looking at 2023 compared to 2024 in quarter 4, the truck travel time was a little bit more unreliable. And then looking at our map Again, the tollway as well as the I-80, I-94, as well as I-94 in Lake and Porter counties tend to be our main problem areas, as well as a new development on I-65 South, just as you're leaving South Lake County right before you go over the Kankakee River. And then congestion. This is our peak hour of excessive delay per capita. As of yesterday afternoon, they had not reported our December metric value, but I do anticipate that we will hit that target. We typically do in the fourth quarter from year to year, as well as our trajectory from October and November. And then looking at the map, there are definitely areas for improvement in our area, but this metric is average for the entire Chicago urban area in both Illinois and in Indiana. So when averaged out, this particular metric is meeting its target. And then finally, looking at our percent of non-single occupancy vehicle travel, these are the 5-year ACS estimates for 2023. And compared to 2022 estimates, they did change this one category from being other to specifying it as work from home. So overall, you can see that Lake County had the highest percentage of carpool as well as public transportation, where Porter County had the highest percentage of work from home, and LaPorte County had the highest percentage of single occupant. And with that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Anybody have any questions for Grace? Thank you, Grace. We'll move on to the 8094 Flex Road project presentation. This will be Mike Yakula. I think I pronounced it correctly.
Yakulo.
Okay.
That's okay.
My apologies.
Close enough for who it's for.
I always say if you can't spell it or pronounce it, you belong in Northwest Indiana.
All right, bear with me. Try to get my presentation. All right, well, yeah, thanks everybody for allowing me to speak to you today and give you an update on what we're doing with Flex Road. I believe we're on the agenda to get our primary DES number approved for the TIP now that the air quality conformity analysis has been complete. Appreciate Scott Weber's efforts on that, so we keep our project on schedule. Moving forward. So just project at a glance. I think obviously people, I'm sure everyone here drives this regularly. It's the busiest interstate corridor in the state. I believe some of our count stations show us getting very close to 200,000 cars a day, with 30% of that being trucks. So hopefully this project will help improve some of those statistics that Grace just showed with the truck traffic efficiency there, as well as just congestion in general. So the project extends from Illinois, Route 394, the interchange where Bishop Ford heads north, over into Indiana, ending at I-65, creating a 14-mile corridor. So again, we're just going to try to identify some solutions here with some innovative strategies to improve both safety and efficiency. And let's see if I can figure out how to use the pointer here on this guy, so everyone can see. All right. So again, the improvements. So this is your strip map of the corridor, showing where we start there in Illinois, going over I-65, and you see a lot of blue dots along here. Each blue dot represents a gantry structure that's going to have an ITS sign with multiple capabilities on it. I don't know if it's easy to see on the screen. We have areas highlighted in red in the curved site segments. That's where we're gonna try to beef up the shoulders and improve correct the super elevation in the curves. Because right now, those shoulders are just meant to drain water towards the median wall. And if you're on the inside of a curve, you don't want it banked towards the wall, so we're gonna correct that super elevation. So that's actually some pavement improvement in those curved segments that you see there. And then the other improvement we've got, it's got its own DES number for concrete pavement repair work to take place from the state line over to Klein Ave. And then we're gonna have some improvements here at the Broadway interchange and the I-65 interchange. Schedule-wise and overview, so we're currently working on finalizing the environmental document. We actually have, there are two separate components to the contract. The first component is to improve the fiber optic cable along the entire corridor. That's, we recently got the environmental document approved for that DES number, so we're in really good shape to move forward. The plans for that, we're going to have the final tracings turned in July, so we'll be ready to start construction on the fiber optic this summer, probably in August. And the primary work, the TISMO work with the gantries and that, final tracings are looking to be on schedule for December. Same with the environmental document, a lot more involved with that environmental document. And again, so we're hopefully we set up to start construction on the main portion of this contract, concrete repair and the TISMO structures. And as early as January, obviously weather may dictate that, so it may be spring 26. And this can be up to a 3-year construction process. So by the end of 28, we should be done. Hopefully sooner, but potentially 3 years. And I say TISMO, what is TISMO? Transportation Systems Management and Operations. It's basically a set of strategies using innovations, things you haven't seen typically on the interstate. Again, it's all about flexibility, gain efficiencies, and reducing the congestion, which then will help safety. So those strategies include ramp metering, controlling when people enter onto the main line to try to make that a smooth transition and avoid any issues there. Variable speed limits, with beefing up the shoulders and making that a usable lane, which is only going to be part-time, that's going to have a separate speed limit because of the geometry. That lane's only going to be 10 foot wide with a 2-foot shoulder. So we'll post different speed limits for each lane. Then the other side of that, if there's a crash 5 miles ahead, we may try to post slower speed limits ahead of that crash so that the platoon doesn't run up at it full speed. So we may go from 55 to 45, and then when you're within a mile of that crash, maybe down to 35 to try to get people slowed down before they hit the back of that queue. Dynamic lane control. Again, we've got to let people know when that shoulder lane is available, so there'll be a green arrow over that lane when it's ready to be used, or a red X if it's not meant to be used. Same thing if there's an incident, the middle lane is blocked, then we'll have a red X over that middle lane and direct people out to the outer lanes, including shoulders. So we talked about dynamic shoulder lanes, improved signage, queue warnings. Again, these gantries will have a dynamic message board aspect to them, just like the current DMSs that are out there. So again, TISMO is kind of new to us, but there are several states that have already implemented a lot of these strategies, and we've got a website, indianaflexroad.com, that I think those details are posted there if you're curious to see what other states have done. And this is an example of what the gantries would look like. Again, we've got basically 3 components. The red X is green arrows to let you know what lanes are to be used currently, and then the speed limit, the display of the visual sign, the image of the speed limit sign to let people know what speed they should be traveling. I know that they don't always listen to what we've got out there now, but we're hopeful. And then the messages to warn people of various conditions. So again, we've got the improvements are those TISMO strategies, but then very specific improvements at the Broadway interchange and then I-65 south. It's predominant movements at eastbound to southbound movement. Right now, the 2-lane ramp is pretty much at or beyond capacity. So as part of this project, we're going to expand that to a 3-lane ramp, as well as, again, improving the weaving area near Broadway. Let's see, we've got actually here. So again, it all starts with setting ourselves up to provide 3 lanes to approach that ramp. The middle lane, kind of an option lane, they can use that to continue east on I-94 or use that to hit the exit. Another improvement here, this ramp coming off of Grant right now, once you come off of Grant, you have 2 choices, either get out into the 3 lanes or you're going to get forced to exit at Broadway. So we're going to continue that lane as an auxiliary lane all the way through the Broadway interchange, and that'll basically become your 3rd lane, taking that ramp on I-65. Then the other bottleneck we've been experiencing in this area is a very tight weaving area right here. Right now, there's a northbound ramp that comes in, and if those motorists want to go from Broadway to continue east towards Michigan, they've got to jump across a couple lanes. You might have motorists out in the middle lane, then trying to weave over and hit I-65. So by eliminating this northbound ramp, that'll give a little more real estate for those maneuvers. So along with that, obviously we'll have a northbound motorist get on the eastbound Borman. We're going to modify the intersection here. We'd analyzed 2 options, either just beefing up the signal, providing a left turn arrow, or even doing a roundabout. Roundabout option was pretty pricey, so we kind of pushed that aside with a northbound left turn, no turn, and share the ramp, the cloverleaf ramp that southbound traffic uses to gain access. So again, just eliminating that bottleneck. And again, just that big key to creating that 3rd lane to increase the capacity of I-65 south. So again, spoke about the fiber optic cable. That's our advanced preservation piece. So it's going to replace the existing fiber optic that the current ITS boards are all connected to. It's quite old. It's reaching the end of its useful life. So, but obviously we'll have enough fibers there to not only serve the older ITS components, but it'll also tie in all of our new concrete sign structures as well. And again, that is set to start as early as August of this year. So again, just looking at our schedule, and that is a little bit of a change. I know we were hoping actually as early as March of this year to start that fiber, but our CMGC contracting scheduling, the way it was structured, we anticipated selecting a contractor by the end of last year, but we actually moved up another contract. We're only allowed to do 2 of these alternate delivery projects each year, so then that moved this project into 2025 to select our contractor to get going. So that's now why we're not going to start that fiber optic installation until later this summer. Again, we're going to try to finish up the environmental document and turn in final tracings for the primary DES number, and then start that work in 26, and we'll be wrapped up by 2028. So again, you can follow the progress. There are further changes on the IndianaFlexRoad.com website. Also tag our TrafficWise here at 511in.org. Maybe some folks are already familiar with that. It's a great tool. You can get on there and see images from our tilt cameras that are out there in interstate. You can get a quick glance at what traffic's looking like. I think there's also a map that color codes red if it's congested and green if it's free flow. So that's a nice tool for everyone to use. And I think that's all the information I have today. Are there any questions? Yes.
Chris Harris from the City of Gary. Will there be phases associated with this project because it says no dashboards? Will this all roll out, in one swoop? Just the reason why I ask is just making sure that residents understand in the City of Gary,
sure,
between First Street, Grant Street,
right,
the Broadway, I-65, the City of Gary has significant interchanges.
Yeah.
So just want to make sure we educate our residents about how to use this. This is definitely dynamic, as opposed to being static. So will this be addressed in phases when the dashboards are online, and will there be the opportunity for refreshers with public engagement before everything is live?
Gotcha. That's a great question. I do anticipate some additional follow-up with public engagement, and like I said, we definitely have the website there, but I do anticipate reaching out to the stakeholders and keeping everyone up to date. As far as the scheduling, I think we're gonna try to piggyback on the maintenance of traffic while we're doing concrete patching there from the state line and Klein Ave to also take advantage of that maintenance of traffic to also do the structures in that area at the same time. So I think that'd be the first focus from the state line to Klein Ave. As that comes to completion, then moving along and taking care of the other sign structures, moving to the east towards I-65. But the way this is, I mentioned very briefly the CMGC, it's a construction or contract manager, general contractor. The way this is set up, it's almost like a design build, although our plans here are already at 90% complete. So the contractor that we preliminary selected, we're still going to sign a contract with them as Superior Construction. We'll be working with them and our designer Parsons to work out that schedule and see where there are efficiencies, where we can save money. If they can spot something that's not really constructible on plans, we can kind of change it on the fly. So it is a fluid situation. But like I said, I think we definitely plan on trying to tag team that concrete repair and the sign structures at that west end first. But yeah, we'll definitely try to keep everyone up to date as it goes along.
You have a pretty good program. I'm not sure what it's called today, traffic-wise, where the citizens can refer to areas where the traffic flow is impeded or it needs stop.
That was at 511 IN website. Yep, the traffic.
So hopefully we can educate people to that and its usefulness throughout the state, not just up here, but there's an opportunity for municipalities to work with the state as well. And I guess my follow-up question is, what kind of traffic flow issues do you anticipate as you're constructing gantries, fiber optic, and also doing your patching product?
Yeah, the fiber optic should be fairly tame. A lot of that's probably directional bore. A lot of that would not, it close probably shoulders at the most. Hopefully, not have really any lane restrictions associated with that. Yeah, definitely when you get into the maintenance of traffic or the concrete repair and the gantries. Of course, the gantries, we do anticipate setting those at night, probably doing a rolling closure for 15 minutes where they use the crane to set it. Once nobody's working over traffic, we can open back up and then work on the lane closures at night, try to maximize the lanes available during the daytime, kind of like similar other contracts when we put up overhead sign structures. But there definitely will be some restrictions. One nice thing, part of the reason we selected Superior was they got a gentleman by the name of Brian Trisco from TCS, who that man lives and breathes traffic patterns and maintenance of traffic. He's been involved in all of our I-94 Borman projects and maintaining traffic and getting the most out of that, try to maximize traffic flow during construction.
And another follow-up to that, in the past, I'm sure with this project, you'll be working with the municipality for traffic control. When you send traffic off of the highway into the local neighborhoods.
Right. Yeah, there's no detours per se, but traffic seeks its own level. If it gets to snarled up while we're doing construction, people are going to seek alternate routes. And yes, I think Parsons has been in touch with all of the adjoining communities to have them aware of that.
Well, I assume you'd have some kind of traffic safety company that would also have directional, that we need the local governments to have a hand in so they're aware of increased traffic flow during this period.
Yeah, we'll definitely stay, I say, in close communication with locals for sure.
Thank you. Any other questions for?
Yeah. So Broadway, the ramp going to 165 East, you were eliminating that.
Yep.
Okay. What's the ADT on that now? Because I'm very curious, because I live right there. And I'm wondering if that's a possible problem, because the city, they're gonna have to take bridge over I-65 for southern traffic. But they can't take that ramp.
Well, like I said, we'll substitute. I mean, we're keeping the traffic still in the interchange, so instead of just making that sweeping right turn and hitting that ramp, you'll have a left turn arrow and you'll turn left, and we're going to set it up to where that southbound Clover Loop ramp, you'll turn left and join them. So you'll still have access without having to be diverted yet to other routes. Okay. But good question.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you.
Next, we have public comment and adoption of air quality conformity determination for NWI 2050 plus. Amendment number 1 in the fiscal year 2024-2028 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 2405. Scott Weber presenting, and then we can go into the resolution as well. You can find this
Trying to
one.
find the default cell phone screen. Since I will give everyone's eyes a break from looking at the screen to looking at paper instead. So.
Yeah. Go to 4 to 6 for the public comment and pages 7 to 8 for the resolution.
Yes, starting on page 4 in your packets is where you'll find the actions related to the air quality conformity determination report for the I-8094 Flex Road project. In order to accommodate the project that we just saw a presentation of that Mike Gill of NDOT just gave us, we as the MPO at NERC, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, have to do some procedural matters in order to accommodate a project of this magnitude, because this is a regionally significant and what is referred to in the air quality world as a non-exempt project, meaning that it adds capacity on a major facility, in this case an interstate, although it actually adds its capacity not in the traditional sense of adding a lane. It's using a more innovative TISMO approach that Mike Gould just presented about, where we're going to be able to use the inside shoulder lanes during certain hours of the day. That's why it was defined as capacity added in the project and why we have to do the air quality conformity. Because the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has designated all of Lake and Porter counties as non-attainment for the ozone pollutants. It's one of the criteria pollutants regulated by the Clean Air Act for the 2008 ozone standards. So therefore, we have to perform this air quality conformity determination report. So the memorandum that you'll see starting on page 4 describes the process that was used to go through the air quality determination report and how NERC has worked with the Interagency Consultation Group of Air Quality, which is comprised of NDOT, as well as Federal Highway Administration, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, IDEM, US EPA, and Federal Transit Administration as well. And the memo on page 4 explains how this process went through a public comment period from December 24th to January 23rd. We were required to go through a 30-day public comment period, and also how we showed that the emissions that would result from this project, in addition to all the other projects that we've already performed the emissions analysis from, just adding this incrementally additional project, would still result in our emissions below the budget, which is shown on the table on page 5 in the memo, for every year that we're required to show it from. The years 2011, 2017, 2019, and 2020 were obviously already in the past. We're in the year 2025 right now. But in each of these years, we have budgets in the state implementation plan that we have to show that the emissions that result from this project, in addition to all the other projects, are at or below those budget numbers for both NOx, which is nitrous oxides, and VOC, volatile organic compounds. So this was done by using our travel demand model and extracting some post-processing runs from it, where we were able to isolate out the on-road emissions from these motor vehicles using these facilities. And Grace Benninger performed a lot of that, so I thank her for that. I should also mention that these numbers are only pertain to, this is a bi-state project. These numbers only pertain to Lake and Porter counties, as I mentioned. So the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning already got their air quality conformity determination approved by their board in December. So it was prerequisite in order for this project to be advanced for both the Chicago Metropolitan Agency of Planning and NERC to show the air quality conformity determination. But we have separate processes for that. So therefore, what you'll find is that public comment report on page 6 about this process. There were no public comments received from that 30-day period from December 24th through January 23rd of this year. So that's agenda item 3.3. 3. If you'd like me to go to any questions about that, I can go right ahead to 3.4, which is the resolution itself. Yes.
May not know that Senate Bill 103, that's pending down in Indianapolis, has to do with the emissions test for Lake and Porter County. They would like to eradicate it. Do you have any information on that? Or how can we use this?
Yeah. So these are separate processes. I thank you for bringing that to my attention. I have heard that that is ongoing still in the General Assembly. So we will definitely hear more about that and what the implications are once this session is finished. That said, the process that that pertains to when you're re-registering your vehicles to the burden of if you live in Lake and Porter County because of the regulations. You're also required to, as you say, go through emissions testing. So this process takes that into account to some extent, this air quality conformity process, because we look at the fleet mixes, we look at all of the registered vehicles in Lake and Porter counties, and one of the parameters is the emissions testing, like pass rate essentially, and that's factored into the numbers that you see here. So if that program were to go away, we would have to take that out of our modeling, and so that would probably cause the emissions numbers to go up a little bit because we wouldn't, instead of we'd basically saying there's no testing, or that there are certain criteria for the testing. If it's like if you're 65 or older, I think is what I've seen in one of the bills, then we'd have to figure out how to model that as well. We don't have all the details yet, but that's something that will eventually impact this process if it goes through. But right now, since that's still ongoing, we don't have that.
It doesn't affect these projects, but it will affect our progress in the future because it's kind of a credit for this area. So there is a return on all this testing, although it seems to be an inconvenience because it's supported by the state up to now, and hopefully in the future will be too. Helps guarantee our success with meeting these requirements on the federal law.
There would, if we took that program out, there would be, just to be clear, there would be an impact to those numbers a little bit, but we don't have since that hasn't happened yet, we don't have the exact details of how that would be implemented. That's not shown.
Thank you.
Any other questions about just the informational item for the public comment related to this process and how we've had to go through it?
Seeing none, let's go to the resolution itself.
Yep. The resolution itself starts on page 7, it's pages 7 to 8. So this is the resolution explaining the process of how we went through the air quality conformity determination process with our interagency consultation group for air quality. Went through that 30-day public comment period and there were no comments received. And this is a prerequisite to ask this body for a favorable recommendation to the executive board that'll meet on Thursday, February 20th. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Tom Schmidt made the motion.
Second.
Was that Max?
That was Bob.
Bob.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors.
Let's do Mark. Blame Mark. We have a first and a second. Do we have any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against? Are there any nays? No. It's unanimous then. So we'll take this to the full commission with your recommendation, 2502. Now we'll move on to 2503. This is another resolution. We have public comment, and on 9 and 11, pages 9 and 11 through 11, and resolution 2503 is on pages 12 to 14. That's for the adoption of Northwest Indiana 2050 Plus Amendment number 1. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the one of the other prerequisites, besides doing the air quality conformity determination report in order to get this Flex Road project in our process approved is to do an amendment to our long-range transportation plan, which is NWI 2050 Plus, which was adopted by the NERC Commission back in July of 2023. So the memo that you'll find on page 9 and 10 explains kind of the process of how we go about, how we propose to go about amending NWI 2050 Plus in order to accommodate this I-8094 Flex Road project. This has to be done after the air quality conformity determination is approved for it. So that's why it's the next agenda item. So basically, the long story short here is how we're going to amend this into NWI 2050 Plus is to change some of the language in the plan that refers to the air quality conformity determination report. So you'll find basically on page 14, you'll see kind of how the text would change from the original text to the amended text. And just to clarify that that in the NWI 2050 Plus plan document itself, it would specify that it's referring to the air quality conformity determination report that was dated as of February 20th, 2025, which is the air quality conformity determination report that will include the I-8094 Flex Road project. So that said, there was no public comment on this plan amendment, as you can see on page 11. That's the public comment report for that. It was the same 30-day public comment period from December 24th to January 23rd. It also went through a 7-day procedural public comment period with the interagency consultation group on air quality from December 20th to, well, an extra 3 days, so a 10-day comment period really to December 30th, because that included the holidays. And there were no comments received from any members of the interagency consultation group. Again, that includes INDOT, Federal Highway, US EPA, Federal Transit, and IDEM. So that is the public comment report about resolution 25-03.
Now resolution.
Yep. Resolution starts on page 12 and goes to page 14. As I already mentioned, that the way that this this I-8094 Flex Road project to be amended into NWI 2050 Plus is to change the language of which air quality conformity determination report it's referring to, as shown for the text changes on page 14 there. That's on page 10 of the plan. So this amendment is for consideration with this body for a favorable recommendation that would be taken up by the NERC Executive Board on February 20th.
Any questions, comments? If not, do I have a favorable recommendation to the full commission, or to the commission for resolution 2503?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mark. Did I hear right? Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. So we'll take a favorable recommendation for resolution 2503 as printed on pages 12 to 14. Excuse me, I lost my breath. Next, we'll go to programming. Thank you, Mr. Weber.
Okay.
Public comment report for fiscal year 2024, Transportation Improvement Program, amendment number 2405. Charles Bradsky is presenting, and then he'll do the resolution 2504, which is the TIP amendment number 2405.
Good morning, everybody. So you've kind of seen a theme between Mike Piculo and Scott Weber and myself. We've kind of put this all together on one in February. What we wanted to do was, because the 8094 Flex Road is so important to the region and to INDOT, we wanted to put that separate. So there's only one amendment, or one project on this amendment. But the memorandum giving you a brief rundown, I don't need to read it because you guys have been talking about it for the past 20 minutes at least. and what this amendment will do, and what this project will do for the region. That starts on page 15. The public comment report, we ran it simultaneously with the other public comments with Scott that he had from December 24th until January 23rd. We only required a 21-day public comment report, but quite honestly, there was another public comment report going on for 30 days, so we just had it going for 30 days. Normally, for a tip amendment, we don't require a 30-day, but in this case, if we were to start cutting and stopping, it'd be too confusing for the public or anybody else to know what's going on, which is part of why we separated this amendment from last month, 150 projects that we had last month. This one is separate, is equally because of its the amount of funding and the importance of it. Not that say the other amendments, the other projects were important, but because of the size of the funding and the size of the project, we wanted to put this one separately.
Suffice it to say, we wanted to focus on the Flex Road.
Yes, focus is a very good word for that.
So that's, whether you do it or not coming into the meeting, that's the focus of our meeting today.
That being said, we did not receive any public comments on this project or this amendment. And we did reach out to the ICG, the Intergovernmental Consultation Group. We did not receive any comments from them earlier. We did, however, meet with them on December 19th virtually and had a discussion with them. So we answered all of their questions prior to sending this out to them in an email form. So they were okay with the amendment as it was stated. So, moving on to resolution 25-04. This is resolution 25-04 for amendment 24-05. And the amendment only has one project on it, as we have been talking about, and it's the ITS traffic management for NDOT. Listed on there are all of the different funding sources on page 19. I do want to note that we do have, Federal Highway did tell us to add Illinois' portion funding into this so that we also show all the funding that you see on page 19 is not all NDOT funds or NDOT controlled funds. At the very bottom, in 2028, anything that says state match is what Illinois is putting in. We show as Illinois putting in. I don't have a separate category, and if I were to put two state matches in for a year, it would automatically combine it into one. So we had to kind of play with the system, but the state match is Illinois' portion for this project.
And hence mega grant.
And then the mega grant is federal special, and that is covering the majority of the funding. So,
any questions for Charles? If not, do I have a favorable recommendation for approval of Resolution 2504, Amendment number 2405? I keep tripping over that.
yes.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Topol made the motion. Do I have a second? Second to Max Freelander from Valparaiso. Thank you so much. Do I have any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? signify by saying nay. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Take it to the commission. Next, we have Resolution 2505, designating NERC as recipient for FTA funds in Valparaiso Shorewood urban area. And Stephen Hughes is going to be presenting this. And one of the last pages of your packet includes a letter from Belmont.
Yes.
My packet was page 24.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
No one's happier to see this coming here than Bob, I think, because of what this does in terms of keeping things the same rather than changing them. So you'll likely remember that the 2020 census designated Valparaiso Shorewood Forest as its own urban area. We've sort of talked about that quite a bit. Prior to 2020, that was part of the Indiana portion of the Chicago urban area. And so with that change, there were lots of little things, some of which have come before this body, some of which have not, and they're kind of just interior things that on our workload, we notice a difference, but nobody else does. But this is one that the FTA let us know that they need a letter from the governor designating who is to receive those 5307 funds, which are the operating expenses for transit in the Valparaiso Shorewood Forest urban area. So big things that would stay the same, provided that this is approved and that the governor signs off on it, is that NERC would continue to do procurement, own the vehicles, do the grant writing. Some of the reporting Valparaiso still does, some of it we do. Reimbursements and the oversight would all still be done from NERC. And the purpose of going through this process is that it doesn't change anything. If they were to say, you know, we don't want to do this, Valparaiso would have to acquire the vehicles from us. They would have to start writing their own grants. And as you'll see in your packet, we do have a letter from Mayor Costas saying that he supports this measure. And then we have a draft letter that's consistent with what happened in 2012, I think, when this sort of process had to take place in the Michigan City urban area. So it's a draft letter that we'll submit to the governor's office. Obviously, he may change some of the wording, but the bones of it will probably remain the same, which is that NERC has the staff and expertise to be able to administer these funds. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we're hoping for a favorable recommendation on this.
So moved. I've got a first for a favorable recommendation for Resolution 2505, designating NERC as recipient for FTA funds in Valparaiso Shorewood Forest urbanized area. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Thompson? I believe. Okay, thank you. So we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Anybody against? So moved. We'll be taken to our next emergency commission meeting.
Thank you.
What else? Relax for us, Val. We have Drive Clean Indiana presenting.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right, so we do have some current funding that's available through the state, through IDEM, This is for the replacement of diesel vehicles. There's a total of $750,000 available, and I do have handouts. You must replace existing diesel vehicles as part of the reimbursement. And if you have any questions on that, please see me afterwards. Applications are due on the 28th. Indiana, there's a couple of different programs that are put on pause right now with Indiana NEVI, National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Funding, and also the Electric Vehicle Charger Reliability and Accessibility Accelerator are currently on pause under federal review through the Ombudsman. We do expect other funding opportunities to be coming out probably second quarter this year. Just updating on different projects that we're currently working on outside of the NERC Norfolk related projects. The 2023 National DARE program that has been kicked off, and over $11.8 million were awarded for projects across Northwest Indiana, and that has been going pretty well with the EPA. And as it relates to Partners for Clean Air scholarships, $2,500 for high school seniors. Applications are due on April 30th of this year. And we do have our annual survey fleet requests coming out, and those are due March 15th. Additionally, we have some events coming up. March 5th, we have our Drive Clean Indiana Stakeholder Breakfast at the JW Marriott down in Indianapolis. This coincides with the Work Truck Show. And that takes place March 4th through the 7th, and we do have free tickets if anyone is wanting to go. Any questions? Okay.
Don't see any.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, we'll move on to business staff announcements and upcoming meetings. I already announced that Dean Button was appointed by Mayor McDermott to represent Hammond on this board. Do we have any other committee appointments? No, that's it for now. Any staff announcements?
I have a couple staff announcements. First, related to the development of the 26 through 28 Transportation Improvement Program. All of the former topical committees have met, with the exception of the Land Use Committee, which is scheduled to meet this not this Thursday, but the following Thursday, the 12th at 1 p.m. here at NERC. So if you are a former member of that committee, you may attend that meeting. So what those groups are doing is they're evaluating the scores that were submitted by the project sponsors and reviewing the NERC staff scores, and then identifying and reaching consensus on a final score for the project applications. So those, once that final meeting occurs, NERC staff will review projects and develop our sort of preliminary draft. It's not really a draft tip yet, but it'll be a preliminary sort of draft program of projects that will be brought back here to the Transportation Committee next month to review prior to releasing it for public comment as the draft tip, which would then be, after public comment, brought back to the group here and to the commission for approval in May. So that's moving ahead, and we appreciate all the individuals who have participated in those group meetings so far. It's really good to talk through the projects and clarify some things and reach consensus. So that's the status on the NOFA and the TIP. Is there any questions on that? Questions or comments? No? Okay. And then the other bit of information that I just wanted to bring up for the committee is, I know that some of you probably have been following the flurry of executive orders and other actions taken by the current President Trump. Some of you may be aware that there was issued last week, Monday, a freeze on all federal funding. That was then that freeze was then rescinded the following Wednesday. So as of today, we're not experiencing any kind of slowdown in our reimbursements or anything like that. So we're receiving all of our federal funding. But as it relates to our transportation program here, there were two memos that were issued by the U.S. Department of Transportation, which I believe are attempting to clarify the implementation of some of these executive orders. And so if you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to read some of these. I've got two in front of me here today. The first is a memorandum for secretarial officers and heads of operating administrations on the subject of implementation of executive orders addressing energy, climate change, diversity, and gender. So this is probably not going to come as a surprise to anyone who's been following what's been going on, but again, these are some ways that it appears that the DOT is going to be implementing these executive orders. I guess the most sort of relevant items, I'll just kind of briefly go over them. They have directed the DOT to identify and eliminate all orders, directives, rules, regulations, notices, guidance documents, funding agreements, programs, and policy statements, or portions thereof, which have been authorized, adopted, or approved from January 20, 2021 to January 20, 2025, and which reference or relate in any way to climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, racial equity, gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, environmental justice, or the Justice 40 initiative. And all of the operating administrations, which would be like the Federal Highway Administration, the FTA, and so on, have been instructed to identify those measures that are in effect within their agency, identify those, submit a list of those to the Secretary of Transportation, and then take action to eliminate all of those programs or whatever. However, those sort of policies have been implemented, they'll be taking action to rescind all those, cancel them. So the real concern that we have is not necessarily on the policy so much, although we do have reflected in some of our own documents some of these policies, which were, an emphasis of the previous administration, including our long-range plan, our TIP, and our UPWP. We don't feel, I'm not so concerned that we'll be in any trouble, but we may have to do some amendments and things like that. But there are certain contracts and agreements that are in process. For example, we have a Safe Streets for All grant agreement that is being processed right now and reviewed. So we do have some concern that may delay the approval of some of those documents and potentially cancel some of them as well. So that's something to keep our eyes on as we go forward. And then the other item, the other memo, it's actually an order which was issued last week, is entitled Ensuring Reliance Upon Sound Economic Analysis in Department of Transportation Policies, Programs, and Activities. So this is kind of like the companion piece to the previous one, which is attempting to rescind and revoke the previous administration's policies. So this is identifying the policies that they will be sort of implementing going forward. And there's really nothing kind of too controversial about it or different, but it does kind of shift the focus of the DOT to a stronger minimizing the focus on the equity type and environmental justice activities, and focusing more on the economic analysis as it relates to projects. So we'll be looking at how we can implement some of those analysis, those types of things within our plans and projects going forward. But I would just encourage you to take a look at it, at these memos. I'll just note that they are identifying as their priorities utilizing user pay models, directing funding to local opportunity zones, mitigating the unique impacts of DOT programs, policies, and activities on families and family-specific difficulties. Giving preference to communities with marriage and birth rates higher than the national average. Prohibiting recipients of DOT support or assistance from imposing vaccine and mask mandates, and requiring local compliance or cooperation with federal immigration enforcement and with other goals and objectives specified by the President of the United States or the Secretary. And then in order to implement those, they're conducting sort of a wholesale review of all of their guidance documents, contracts, NOFAs, and so on, to kind of substitute these policies for the previous administration. So just wanted to let everybody know that some of these things are happening, and nothing's really been settled or identified as far as I can tell. It kind of changes on a day-to-day basis, but within probably the next 30 days, I think we'll see some of the effects of what this means for our work here at Emerson. I'll take questions. I don't know if I'll have any answers, but
I will tell you, I was particularly alarmed starting about 2 weeks ago with the information coming out in our professional journals, and just in the news in general, and ask staff to really pay close attention to see how we can assist our local communities, because without a doubt, the rules are changing. It's beyond our control, but we'll do everything we can to assist the municipalities to conform to what's required. I particularly thank Mitch, Charles, Scott, and Tom, and Ty Warner, the director, for answering my emails and starting to formulate a plan for the agency and how we fit into it. Then speaking to that, we also have to be cognizant of the fact that the state is introducing House Bill 1461. It's under discussion as we speak, and it's about road funding. At the state level, Jim Crossell, who's from Rolling Prairie, he's one of our own up here, is the committee chair. And it's going to have impacts on the community crossing grants and other ways the state is funding things. I think it's interesting. They're looking at every pocket. They're looking at the township trustees' funds right now as far as availability if they have surplus funds, which I don't know many trustees that have surplus funds, but okay, it doesn't hurt to look at it. The other thing that's under discussion right now, if you weren't aware of it, there's more discussion down at the State House about tolling. And I don't know how far this session's going to go as far as these recommendations, but here again, it's beyond our control. We're going to see how we can work with the system again. Any questions, any comments? That is House Bill 1461. It's worthwhile watching. And Jim Pressel is very receptive and available. So if you have any discussion or concerns, don't hesitate to email him or the other committee members. David.
In addition to, I think 1461 was not on my radar, but Senate Bill 323 was. I'm not sure where it's at right now, but it was, I think, put out or supported by Freeman, who had been shooting arrows on an annual basis at Indigo, and to be colloquial, leaving catching strays. He is not interested in kneecapping Indigo at this point, but Senate Bill 323 would statewide, outside of Indianapolis, prevent any road diets for or lane reductions for any road in the state, which would basically for those who have been in some of the meetings with NDOT, we basically outlaw some of the recommendations that they're making to improve flow on the Broadway corridor. We're hoping that it's going to, it wasn't Central Roads and Streets or anything, it was Central Rules. So it may be sent there to die. But bills at the last minute can take on lives of their own or be amended into other bills. So that bill there is something we do not want. So we basically limit our ability to even repair or repaint bus bypass lanes in Gary and Merrill. And we're looking at, not making any reductions to those, but maybe increasing them because of the ridership in the Broadway Metro Express. We had a 35% increase in ridership last year. So if you are in conversation with anyone in Indianapolis, Senate Bill 323 is the most pressing for our interests up here in terms of transit over city and just congestion reduction.
And as you said, they're early in the process, so we don't know what these things are going to turn out to be. Keep an eye on them because it could get worse.
Yeah.
Hopefully get better.
To what Tom spoke of, so you said that SS4A managed, could be indications to that. There was also a special safety call for projects that NDOT released last year. Have you heard of that could be affected?
I haven't heard anything. I'm looking at Charles. I don't know if he's heard anything. My sense is that
I haven't heard anything, but being that it deals with safety, I would gamble on that being safer. As far as that program being continued.
Okay. I haven't heard anything. City of Valparaiso was awarded funds. I haven't heard anything, but just if you hear anything, I'll keep an ear out for it as well. But
We just hope common sense prevails. This is a safety project, but no guarantees. Like I said, we have advocates here in this building that I think we can
yeah, and as it relates to our funding, we're kind of less worried about the programmatic funding that we receive, and more concerned about the discretionary grants because those are more sort of discretionary, right? So I mean, they take a little more. There's less of a right, so to speak, to those funds than we would otherwise have with our programmatic funds.
Any more comments or questions?
Just a note, I guess, maybe some of the latest information. I sub-chair the Transportation Committee for ACC Governmental Affairs, and Senate Bill 323 from last week is effectively dead, and the reason why it's going, so it sounds like that's been shut down. So keep an eye on it, but it just maybe put some people at ease.
I'm keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, it doesn't affect it.
It'll be like whack-a-mole, it'll be up for the next session, so keep an eye on it. Yes?
Just informational, Cherville has recently made some upgrades to their website, cherville.org. Anybody interested in looking at a broad scope of what the Kennedy Avenue projects are going to involve, it's on our website now, you can see it.
Thank you. Any other comments? We'll go on with, we have a list of all the upcoming NERC meetings. Probably the most important will be the NERC Executive Board on February 20th, where we'll consider the resolutions that you awarded favorably today. T-Rock for Lake and Porter Counties is February 25th at 9 a.m. And for LaPorte County, T-Rock will be February 25th at 1 p.m. The next meeting, a Transportation Committee meeting, is scheduled for Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 at 10 a.m. in this office. Anything else good for the cause? If not, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Motion for adjournment.
Thank you. You're reading my mind. So moved. See you next